Boop. Boop, 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 boop. It is cold. Feels nice though, honestly. It's gonna feel nice after I get done with this workout, man. I'm all sweaty. What's going on, you guys? Today I'm going to be doing a quick video on rev matching. I'm going to do a demonstration, explanation, all that good stuff. I'm currently on my way to the gym, but I'm going to stop in a parking lot briefly so I can demonstrate it and talk about things quickly. But just kind of an introduction. As a preface, I'm not a pro at doing this, so don't, take my advice as fact. This is purely just advice for my own experience and what works for me, so just keep that in mind. I'm just trying to tell you what I've done. And that's only been on my bike. I've not, really rode a ton of bikes. I don't have a huge amount of experience, so just keep those things in mind. So basically, rev matching, I just did it there a second ago. It's pretty much, put simply, it is basically bringing the revs up. By revs we mean RPM. Bringing the RPM up before downshifting. This is something you do when you're downshifting. So the goal is to bring the RPM up to the level that your bike would be in at that lower gear, or at that lower numbered gear. So as example, that might be kind of confusing the way I worded that, I realize. As an example, when you're in third gear, if you're at 4,000 RPM, if you were to be in second gear at the same speed, same mile per hour, you're going to be at a higher RPM. You're going to be at like 5,000, 6,000 RPM. Okay, so that's the general idea, right? So at lower gears, you're at higher RPMs. So see, I'm in like third now. If I go down a gear, I'm up higher now, but I was slowing down, so it might not have been much higher. Gearing is kind of a little bit weird to understand if you haven't, already learned about it a little bit. But basically, just understand that at lower numbered gears, you're going to be at higher RPMs than you would be if you were in a higher numbered gear, right? So just think about it that way. So basically, rev matching, I'm trying to bring the revs from the higher numbered gear that I'm in up to the trying to bring the revs from like gear 3 up to what the revs would be at if I was at the same speed in gear 2. So that's essentially what we're trying to do, and that's why it's called rev matching, because you're trying to match the revs to what they will be at when you downshift. Okay, so we're here in the parking lot. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of a demonstration here. So basically, as I said, we're trying to bring the revs up to the RPM that they will roughly be at when we shift down into a lower numbered gear. Okay? So, how do you do this? Basically, when you're going to downshift, this ends up being a quick motion, but at the start, when you're learning, you kind of have to slow it down piece by piece. So the way it goes is I'm ready to downshift. I'm going to slowly start to let off the throttle just a tad, and then what I'm going to do is pull the clutch in so that we're not delivering power to the rear wheel. Pull the clutch in, rev up, so give throttle like that. And so what I do is I rev until I get to a certain rev, or until I get to that rev mark that I want to be at, because that's what's going to match that lower numbered gear. So let's say I want to get to, let's say I'm cruising at 3 right now. I'm in neutral, so none of this is gonna, I'm not moving obviously. So say I'm at 3, and then I want to rev match to get to about 4. So I'm going to go like this. And then right when it hits that 4,000 mark, so right when it gets to roughly the rev, the RPM that you want it to be at, that's when you click down on the downshifter and shift down in your bike. So let's try and do a little demonstration. Luckily I have a 300, so my gears are pretty short, so I can get up in gears in this short distance. However, I will say it is kind of hard for me to do. It's a little harder to rev match from second to first for me than it is from any other gear down. So like 6 to 5, 5 to 4, 4 to 3, etc. So I'll do my best, but I'll go into second here, and then we will rev match down. And I'll try and do it slow. I normally do it fast. If you've watched any of my other videos, as you start to learn, you do it faster. And like I said, it's a quick movement. But we'll get up into second. And then, so we're going to try and rev match. So we're going to pull this in, go up. And see, I downshifted right there. Okay? And it matched the RPMs that I was in, or that I was going to be at in first gear. Right? Let's do it again. I'll try and do it slow. So we're up in second, about 4,000 RPM. We're going to rev up and then shift down into first. So essentially the goal of this is to smooth out your transitions when you're downshifting. Dang, that guy smoked a bird. See that on the grill of his truck. So basically the goal of this is to smooth your transitions when you're downshifting, okay? Because when you normally downshift, if you don't apply rev matching, you're usually going to get a bit of the bike's going to move forward a little bit. You're gonna kind of lurch forward. It's not lurch forward, but it's like you're gonna bob forward a little bit. I'll show you what that looks like. And that reason this does this, so no rev matching. See, I kind of lurch forward like that. And the reason that does that is because, like I said previously, when I'm going from second to first gear is going to be at a higher RPM, right? And so shifting into that lower gear, it's engine braking. It's like a shock of engine braking because I'm at a lower gear, but I'm at a higher RPM, right? So that's the engine doing its braking job. And so that's what it looks like if you don't rev match. And so the purpose of rev matching is to eliminate that bob forward that happens when your bike abruptly engine brakes, and when you don't rev match, obviously your bike abruptly engine brakes. So that's the purpose of rev matching. So again, you're sitting at about in second gear, whatever gear you're in. First move is clutch in and then throttle. Now the clutch and throttle end up actually going at about the same time. And the throttle, honestly, instead of a slow roll, it normally becomes something more so like a flick. It's almost like a flick. I talked about how I flick my hand like that while applying front brake. So it's clutch in and throttle, and these are going to happen both very quickly. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like. It's like a quick flick of the clutch and a quick flick of the throttle. So it's like that, but you're going to obviously apply a little bit more throttle, so something more like that. Sorry, I'm not used to doing it in neutral. It's a little bit weird. We'll try it like this. So say I'm at 3,000, something like that. See, I just quickly went up to about 4,000 from 3,000 with the clutch. So say watch my RPM sitting at 3, and I clutch in, throttle. They almost happen simultaneously. It's almost like anything you learn, you start it step by step, you understand the multiple steps you have to take, and then you end up doing them almost seemingly simultaneous. So that's the goal of what we're doing here. So make sure you understand that. So clutch in, throttles up, because obviously, right, you have to understand that the clutch is in, so that's how you're allowing your bike to go up in revs without actually giving power to the rear tire and accelerating, because it wouldn't work that way, right? Clutch in, throttle up, and then once you've actually gained enough RPMs, and don't try and calculate what RPM you're at, okay? Because you're not going to be able to ever get it exact. There may be something you just randomly get it exact by accident, and those are going to be smooth, but don't try and get it exact. Just make sure you're going up in RPMs, all right? That's the goal here. So clutch in, throttle up, and then as you go up in those RPMs past what you're sitting at in gear, then you downshift, obviously with the clutch still in, you downshift, and then that causes you to raise your RPMs, but you're downshifting at the same time. And so if you match it properly, it'll be a lot smoother than if you were to do it without obviously rev matching. So I'll try and do a couple more examples here. I'm gonna just go back out on the road and do it because it works a little bit better. Well, we'll do one here. So I'm at 4,000. See, that was a little bit better. See, I still have a little bit of a bob because it wasn't a perfect rev match, obviously. So you're gonna have, it's not gonna be perfect when you start it, but you're gonna have a bit of bobbing. But once you start to get it more once you start to understand it and practice it a little bit more, you'll see those shifts becoming smoother and smoother, okay? Something I'll detail is that when you're just starting out doing this, and because you're slowing down when you do this, you're not decelerating. When you're slowing down, you're actually usually applying the brake. You're coming to a stop when you're doing this. I would recommend only using the rear brake when you start coming to a stop, because when you try and combine all these three things that you're trying to do with applying the front brake, it becomes kind of hard because you're having to keep good throttle control. So trying to apply the front brake while also giving that, you know, little flick of the wrist and the throttle, it can be kind of hard. So just start on the rear brake and just focus on keeping good throttle control when you're rev matching, okay? So we're in third gear, we're gonna get into fourth. And so I'm gonna clutch in, throttle up, and then downshift, all pretty much at the same time now. Ready? See how smooth that was? I hardly, you know, bobbed at all. And you know, it's like I said, this is going to be something that you have to kind of slowly learn and do it in a safe place, and you know, in a safe area. It sounds weird saying safe place. Just in a safe area where you can, you know, do this and not disrupt traffic or anything. Oh, speaking of traffic, holy cow. But yeah, that's pretty much the demonstration of it. Those are the three main steps. That's what you're doing. Like I said, start slowly. You know, don't try and do it all in one go when you start out. Start off by pulling the clutch in, revving up. And what you can do is you can actually just cruise. Okay, so cruise at like 20 miles an hour, pull your clutch in, and then just slowly get the revs up and actually like just hold it like I just did there. Hold it and get it up until you're at a point where you think it's valid. Your revs are a little higher than what they were when you were cruising at 20. Do that, pull your clutch in, then kick down on your downshifter, and then let go of the clutch, okay? That allows you to slowly do it. So I'll show you kind of like right here. So like I did there. That wasn't very good, but nonetheless, that's essentially what you're doing. And so do it slow. Do it step by step. Clutch in, throttle up, okay? And then kick down. Hopefully this was helpful. I know I kind of ramble a lot when I do these demonstrations, and it can be kind of hard to follow, but I hope that you can kind of start to gain an understanding of this, and maybe in the future when I'm a little bit better at content creation, I can make a shorter video, more concise video detailing specific steps, things like that. So I hope this was helpful, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, wanting to learn, better yourself on the motorcycle. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace out, guys. Thank you for watching. Clutch and throttle downshift all at once. Look at that.